Thank you.
So, this has been a really interesting set of sessions, and I think it's been really valuable. I've really enjoyed taking part, but I've also really enjoyed listening to the other presentations. The case studies have been really valuable, and I really want to just wrap up with a few thoughts. And I think the themes we had about API management, identity management, and cloud were really valuable because they all come together in building, I think, that the new business models and the digital transformation that is going to drive all of our efforts over the next, year, 5 years, 10 years, and even 20 years. So it's an exciting day today. Today is WSO2's 15th birthday. We founded the company exactly 15 years ago today. And, in that time, we've seen some things really remain the same and some things change massively. So the things that have remained the same is that we set up WSO2 around a vision of building a global company. So not just a US based company or a UK based company or a Sri Lankan company, but a genuine global company. We set WSO2 up around open source, and we set WSO2 up around the idea that applications were going to be built across networks. Now that name has changed. That was called service-oriented architecture. Now it's called cloud and APIs. But fundamentally, that idea that we're building applications out of genuinely distributed systems, and that is the default was our vision, and that is exactly where we are today. And I think we've gone further than that. What's really interesting is that we had this vision back in the early 2000s of web services, and that vision was that there would be genuine network available services that people could buy and utilize, and that is exactly what APIs as products are, is exactly that vision. And the technology has changed from SOAP to REST to GraphQL to gRPC to WebSockets, but the fundamental concept is absolutely there. And in my initial talk back a few weeks ago, I talked about these different business models that are emerging from APIs as products, where APIs start to be resold, reused, and start to create new ecosystems. And I'm not going to dive into that. If you didn't catch it, then there's the two resources. One is there's a webinar I gave about it, which you can find there, and the second is obviously the talks that I gave last time. But I think this is really interesting, is this idea that we are changing the actual business models. We're no longer just the IT guys, helping build out what the business guys have thought of. We're actually driving business models through new technology and new approaches, and I think that's a really exciting place to be. And you can't do these multi-party business models without knowing who your customer is. You need to secure access, but beyond that, you need adaptive authentication and strong authentication. And those are really key parts, for example, of our open banking stack, which allows banks to use strong customer authentication, use multi-factor authentication, and adaptive authentication, where we actually take on board the context of this request. Is this the first time someone's logged in today, or is it the 10th time they've tried to log in within 5 seconds? Those are very different. Is this the same IP address that's logged in 100 times before? Is it an IP address that's been used for 100 attacks before? And then once we've got that identity, Then we need to apply policies and access controls, and increasingly those are flexible controls such as OPA. Yeah. We want to track customer interactions. So we want to integrate that identity access management with our CRM system and with other systems. So this is no longer just a piece of the technical puzzle. It's now part of the business process. When someone logs in, that's engaging with your customer. Of course, we need to manage consent. And again, that's a big part of our open banking stack and our customer identity access management system. One really interesting thing is, this world is no longer homogenous, and WSO2 is at the heart of helping to build ecosystems around open source and open standards. And working with third-party identity systems is a big part of what we want to do, need to do, and can do. And we were the first company to really offer a federated identity bus, which allowed token swapping, which allowed you to take a token from Facebook, Google, GitHub, and turn it into a different type of token that's consumed by Salesforce or SAP. Provisioning identities is a really important point, because we want to onboard customers. We don't want to just work with the existing customers. We want and need to be able to onboard new users, new customers. And I think a really important point of identity management and where customer identity management is going is that we don't just want to support IT operations with this. We need to support developers as well. It's absolutely essential that developers learn that they have the power to use identity intelligently, that they can embed identity into new offerings in a consistent way that works with the rest of the enterprise, but gives them the power to do all these things that I've talked about above. And, I talked about emerging supply chains for API in finance, and these three things of APIs, cloud, and identity are absolutely central to, for example, the story we heard on the first session about Flash. Flash are basically creating a new financial product, which they sell in interesting ways and develop in new ways. And the ability for the whole open banking movement relies on cloud and federated identities and consent management, strong customer authentication to enable all of these new supply chains. And I think that's really interesting. And then today we really focused on cloud. And I think, Gino and Chamath really identified strongly, what are the why cloud? What is it about cloud that we're after? And I think some really interesting themes come out. So repeatability is absolutely essential. That ability to create DevOps and infrastructure as code is and to create your whole stack as code is absolutely valuable. Speed to market, the ability to get there faster. When we started WSO2, I remember a project with Deutsche Bank where we built a production system in a month for them. And then they said, well, unfortunately, it's going to take us 6 months to provision the hardware for this system to run on. To just get one server into a data center was going to take them 6 months. Now you can provision a cloud in a minute or 3 minutes. You can actually get a whole Kubernetes cluster up in 5 minutes on Google. So now the challenge is on us as development environments and to speed up development to keep up with cloud, which I think is really cool, the way that's swapped. I think, Gino really put it clearly, that you want to build environments where you can focus on what you're good at and get someone else to focus on what they're good at. And cloud is definitely that. The site reliability engineering and DevOps enablement that AWS, Azure, Google, and other clouds provide are incredible. And you know, that's really important. And so where does WSO2 fit in that? So obviously we offer our managed cloud services, and what that's really saying is we are good at providing the next layer on top of AWS or Azure, but also we're good at managing our own software. So if you want to really focus on your core competencies, we can also help by managing the cloud instances, upgrading the servers, doing a blue-green deployment, and helping you set up a CI/CD pipeline that's tuned to WSO2 software. And I think a really key question came out at the end, you know, what is it that WSO2 offers that AWS or Azure don't? And what we offer is an outstanding experience in building APIs, integrating with systems and identity management. And our software in each of those environments is way, way ahead of those offered by AWS, Azure, or Google. You know, Google with Apigee is probably the closest to having a strong offering, but they don't have a strong identity management offering. They don't have a strong integration offering. So, you know, we have a significant thing, and also, I hate to say it, but a lot better value than Apigee, and that actually enables you to be more innovative as well. Another aspect of cloud I think is really important is pay as you go. I'll talk about that in a minute. The scale is obviously a key aspect that you can scale up and down. So speed to market is kind of scaling from 0 to 1. And then what I call scale is scaling from 1 to n and n to 1. And finally, I think it's really important that we enable innovation. You know, I work with all sorts of companies, large and small, traditional and startups. And, you know, the reality is that even in large traditional companies, innovations are key. You know, if you are a Fortune 500 bank, and maybe you seem to the rest of the world like you move slowly, but innovations within that system can optimize massively. You know, if you are that size, a small innovation can save you millions a year. And I really want to talk about this shift to cloud native. So cloud native to me is the confluence of the container movement with the API movement. So in other words, building network connected systems that are created out of small, highly agile cloud systems. And I take a little bit of credit. So I was one of the very first people to blog about cloud native 10 years ago this year, and you can still find that blog up on my website. And we weren't talking about containers and Kubernetes in those days. We were talking about PaaSes and all sorts of other technologies, but the core concepts I think were still the same. Of building systems that are inherently cloud ready creates a new kind of agility. And so we've seen this shift from virtual machines to containers and Kubernetes. We've seen a shift from center of excellence based integration to API led decentralized integration. We've seen a shift from APIs just being for partners to being APIs everywhere. We've seen a shift from a single edge API gateway to edge gateways and micro gateways working in concert. We've seen a big shift from synchronous request reply to event driven asynchronous systems. And a big part of WSO2's offering is that we have a streaming real-time integration platform that supports WebSockets, it supports Kafka, it supports Rabbit, and it enables you to build real-time integrations out to partners and internally, and I think that's really important. There's been a big shift from heavyweight systems to lightweight, decoupled, and deploy anywhere. There's been a shift from script-based deployment to GitOps. And you know, I said at the beginning that one of our core tenets was open source, and I think this is a big shift in the shift to cloud native, is that, you know, of course, proprietary licenses are going to move into the cloud world, but there is a big shift to say we're gonna look at open source by default, and you can see that across this whole world. You know, Kubernetes has created a whole raft of new open source projects. Prometheus, the CNCF has launched 100 new things, and this is I think a big part of the world. And finally, pay up front to pay as you go, and this is also to do with licenses. And WSO2 has very much taken this on board and built a set of licensing and subscription models that are really enabling you to optimize your cost based on usage, and which I think is really, really important part of this story. And I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts about the bigger picture as you do a digital transformation. And you know, the Agile Manifesto has some really interesting aspects to it. And one of those is this idea that the best architectures come from self-organizing teams. And, you know, we all know the two pizza rule that Jeff Bezos made very famous. The idea that you should never have a team that you can't feed with two pizzas. Now, I haven't had a pizza in South Africa. I had a very nice set of meals last time I was there, but I didn't unfortunately get to taste your pizza. But in England, unfortunately, our pizzas are quite small, and a two pizza rule would be a team of two, because basically one pizza feeds one person. But in the US, where this comes from, the pizzas are pretty big. So a typical two pizza team is between, you know, is like, say, 6 to 10 people. And there's some science behind this. So Jennifer Muller from Wharton Management School did research, and she found that as team sizes grow, you get this thing called relational loss. And this is fundamentally that the team gets too big, and people don't know each other, they can't trust each other, and therefore their productivity goes down. And Conway, back in 1967, Martin Conway postulated this law called Conway's Law. And he said that organizations which design systems are constrained to produce designs which are copies of the communication structures of these organizations. So Eric Raymond put it better. He said, if you have 4 groups working on a compiler, you'll end up with a 4-pass compiler. And, you know, for a long time, I wasn't a manager, I was a young programmer, and I knew about this, and I used to blame management for messing this up. But I soon realized that, you know, you cannot fight culture and you cannot fight human nature. So this is really an aspect of human nature. It's the way our brains work. It's the biological, it's thousands of years of evolution have built us into this model where we work really effectively in small bands. You know, and so we kind of took this on board, and Asanka and I came up with this concept called a cell-based reference architecture. And this is really about a way of organizing which is not fighting Conway's Law. It's saying, well, okay, I accept Conway's Law, so I want to structure my organization in the same way that I want my design structured. And that's really what a cell-based architecture is about. And I really urge you to take a look at this paper. It's been getting some very interesting traction recently, and I think it's got a lot to say, not just for the next few years, but as we push out into a cloud, API, and federated identity world. And that also led us to build a key white paper, which is about our reference methodology. This is about how an organization shifts their people, processes, and technology to become more agile, more decentralized, more cloud ready, and more self-organized. And again, I think this is really worth a read. So please. And by the way, these are, you know, just like everything else, these are open source. So these 2 papers are both on GitHub. They're both under a Creative Commons license. And if you have improvements or suggestions, we'd really accept pull requests on those. Not just really, but readily accept pull requests on those. So I think if you are moving on this digital transformation journey, then you do need these three foundations. You need a flexible cloud environment, and we talked about the reasons for those. You need an API-led integration strategy, helping you evolve and build API products that are going to be the bedrock of your digital transformation. And you need to be able to offer those to customers via multiple channels, web, mobile, but also this new concept of B2B2C. So in other words, business to consumer. So not just offering your new products, your digital products directly, but indirectly through your ecosystem with federated managed identity. And Steve gave a very nice overview of our product line, so I'm not going to go into that today. But I'm really convinced that this is a key enabler, and when you put it together with AWS Azure, WSO2's managed cloud, and the expertise and capabilities of our partners like DArgs, then you start to get a true foundation for digital transformation. And I can't show you this, which is why it's blurred out, but possibly later today, certainly this week, Forrester is launching their next API wave. They're also launching later in the year a customer identity access management wave. This is their review. So Forrester took a look at all the major companies providing API management solutions, including AWS, Azure, MuleSoft, Software AG, IBM, Google, Axway, pretty much everyone in the space. They do an incredibly detailed analysis. They give us a questionnaire with hundreds of questions on it. They give us a demo script with only 1 week to prepare, and it's a huge demo script, and we just managed to demo everything they require within 3 hours, and it's literally bang, 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 quick, show me this, show me this, show me this. And we were, in last year's Forrester API wave, we were leaders, but we were right on the edge of the leadership quadrant, and without giving too much away, I think you're going to find us right in the middle of the leadership quadrant with a very strong rating this year, right up there with Google, IBM, and the other 4 leaders in this space. So I'm very excited about that, and I think that's a nice birthday present for WSO2. And I want to leave you with this final thought, which is that what we are doing with cloud, with APIs, with federated identity, with customer identity access management is we are building not just a system. We're not just saying, here is a banking app, a mobile app we need. Here is a solution we need. We're building a framework. We're building an environment in which we can adapt, in which we can create new products quickly, improve products, understand the market and react to it. And to quote Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest of the species that survives or the most intelligent, it's the one that's the most adaptable to change. And that's really what we believe that everyone needs to do on their journey to digital transformation, is to build the adaptability. That is your key challenge. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
I have a grin from ear to ear. It was a privilege. Paul, thank you so much. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you and to WSO2.
Thank you very much, Steve. Any questions? I'm jealous of Gino, who had a good crowd of questions. Are there any questions from today or from my earlier session that anyone has? Well, if there are no questions, then I just want to do one thing, which is to really thank all the people who were involved in this set of sessions. So Steve has put a huge amount of work into this. I know he's been setting up previous sessions, organization, making sure all the presentations were there, getting all the technology. We've had a huge amount of help from Brian at WSO2 in the technical front and getting all the Zoom sessions ready and so forth. And of course, we've had an amazing set of speakers throughout the sessions and really great content, really interesting case studies, deep dives into technology, and as Steve said at the beginning, that ability to go from the high level vision down to the gory details has been, I think, a great part of this series of talks. So I'd really like to thank everyone who was involved. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Paul. I don't see any questions now, so I think then that just leaves for me to give the reminder that on Thursday at 9 o'clock, hopefully you've got your invitations for those that have registered. If not, let us know. Gina will be available. I'm not sure if Chamath will join us, possibly. But the idea, like with the previous ones, is for us to make a deep dive available to look into, to ask questions, to get very interactive from a Q&A perspective. So feel free to join us for that. Otherwise, thank you very much. Thank you for the early show, Paul. I'm also grateful for that. We'll be looking out for that Forrester Wave report. That sounds good. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.